Look at the city of Berlin from above at night. It is a very interesting sight. You can see that the lights are not the same in all parts of the city. In the western part, the lights have one color, often blue or white. In the eastern part, the lights have another color, often yellow or orange. These different lights are a sign. They show that Berlin was once a city that was divided into two different areas. During the day, you can also see differences in the city. Look at the buildings and the streets. In the western part, you can find older, traditional buildings and streets that are not very wide. But in the eastern part, you often see large, simple buildings and wide streets that look very different. These differences in how the city looks were not by chance. They were because of a very important reason from the past. Many years ago, a real wall stood in the middle of Berlin. It was made of concrete and was very tall, about 3 meters high. There was also wire on top of it. This wall physically divided the city into east and west. The Berlin Wall was more than just a structure of concrete and wire. It became a symbol. It showed the big difference between two different ways of organizing a country and its people. These were capitalism and socialism. The world was in a time called the Cold War. This was a period when the United States and the Soviet Union were the two main world powers. They were not in a hot war with fighting armies, but they were competing strongly. They wanted to show which system of government and economy was better. Capitalism usually means that people and companies own things and make money freely. Socialism often means the government owns or controls many things, like businesses, and tries to make everyone more equal. The wall in Berlin was a very clear line between these two competing ideas right in the middle of Europe. This story will explain the history of this wall. We will learn who decided to build it and the reasons why it was built. We will also look at the effects the wall had on Germany and its people. Building the wall had a very big impact. It separated families and friends for many years. Life became very different on each side of the wall. The way people worked and the amount of money they earned was not the same. The wall changed Germany for a long time. It created a deep division in the country. It also greatly affected Germany's economy. Even after the wall was taken down and Germany became one country again, the results of this division did not go away completely. People and the economy in the areas of the former East Germany and West Germany are still different in many ways. This story will help explain how this past division still has an impact today. The different lights and buildings in Berlin are like a reminder of this time when the city and the country were split in two. 2. After the war. World War II finished in the year 1945. The war was over. Soldiers from Britain, France, America, and the Soviet Union were in Germany. They had won the war. Leaders from the winning countries met in a city called Potsdam. These leaders were Winston Churchill from Britain, Harry Truman from America, and Joseph Stalin from the Soviet Union. They talked about Germany's future. They wanted to stop Germany from starting another big war. They agreed that Germany must not make weapons, military planes, or ships. They also said that the factories that made these things should be taken apart or destroyed. They knew that after the First World War, Germany was very poor, and this helped Adolf Hitler become strong. So they did not want to destroy Germany completely this time. But they still divided the country. Germany was split into 4 parts, or zones. Britain, France, America, and the Soviet Union each took control of one zone. The capital city, Berlin, was also divided into 4 zones in the same way. The countries that won the war also took things from Germany. They took machines from factories. They took food and resources. This was to make Germany less strong for war. There was a lot to take. Before the war, Germany had a very good economy. It was one of the richest countries in the world. Only a few countries had a higher GDP per person. But after the war, Germany was badly hurt. Over the next 5 years, it lost about $23 billion in money and things. The Soviet Union took the most things from Germany. This is because the Soviet Union suffered the most damage in the war. Many people in the world saw the Soviet Union as the main winner and the one who helped free Europe from fascism. Britain and France lost their power even inside Europe. By May 1945, the Soviet army was very large and was stationed across Europe. The idea of communism became popular quickly in many European countries. Western countries became very worried about this. Half of Europe already had communist influence, and it seemed like more might follow. A new time of problems was starting. 3. A new big problem. After the big war, the world changed. There was a new balance of power. The Soviet Union became very strong. Many countries in Europe started to like the idea of communism. Western countries watched this and felt worried. Winston Churchill, who was the leader of Britain, spoke about this fear. In a speech in the United States, he said that an iron curtain was coming down across Europe. He meant that the Soviet Union was separating the East from the West. It was like a wall made of iron, dividing the continent. This made many people think that a new kind of conflict, a Cold War, was starting. The United States wanted to stop the spread of communism. The American president, Harry Truman, announced a new plan. It was called the Truman Doctrine. This plan offered money and help to countries that were fighting against communism. For example, Greece and Turkey received help to make their armies and economies strong. Then the United States had another important idea. George Marshall, who worked for the U.S. government, suggested helping all of Europe. His idea became the Marshall Plan. Europe was very poor after the war. Cities and factories were destroyed. People needed food and places to live. The Marshall Plan offered a lot of money to European countries to rebuild. But there was more to the Marshall Plan than just helping people. The United States also wanted to help its own economy. American factories made many things, and they needed markets to sell them. By giving Europe money, the U.S. knew Europe would buy American goods. This would help the U.S. economy grow. Also, the Marshall Plan was a way to fight communism. The U.S. believed that poor countries were more likely to become communist. By making Europe strong and rich again, the U.S. hoped people would not choose communism. The Marshall Plan became a big part of the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union. 4. Money and sides. The Marshall Plan brought much-needed money to Europe after the war. This plan helped countries that agreed with the West and were against communism. In countries like France and Italy, communist political parties were quite strong after the war. Leaders from these parties held important positions in the governments. But after the Marshall Plan started giving money in 1948, these communist leaders were removed from the governments in 1947. This financial help influenced politics in these countries and helped keep them tied to the West. At the same time, both the Western countries and the Soviet Union used propaganda. This was like a war of ideas. The West, especially the United States, showed how good life was under capitalism. They presented the Soviet Union and communism as bad and dangerous. The East, led by the Soviet Union, said that they wanted peace and that the West was trying to start new conflicts. They also said that Western aid was not needed or wanted. The Marshall Plan became a clear sign of this growing Cold War fight. West Germany's situation was different at first. The United States initially had a plan called the Morgenthau Plan. This plan aimed to keep Germany weak and mainly a farming country so it could not start another war. This meant taking apart factories. But as the Cold War became more serious, the U.S. changed its mind. West Germany was now seen as important. The U.S. wanted West Germany to be a strong example of how well capitalism worked, right next to the Soviet zone. So, the U.S. included West Germany in the Marshall Plan. They gave money to West Germany to rebuild its industries and economy. But there was another big problem in Germany after the war: very high inflation. The old German money, the Reichsmark, was almost worthless. People did not trust it. They preferred to use things like cigarettes or foreign money, like US dollars, to trade. Germany needed new, stable money to fix its economy. However, the countries controlling Germany, the Western Allies, and the Soviet Union could not agree on who would create and control this new money. Each side wanted control because it would give them power over the whole German economy. The Western zones decided to act first. They created a new currency called the Deutschmark. On June 21, 1948, the Deutschmark was introduced in West Germany. It became the only money you could use to buy things. Just 5 days later, the old Reichsmark had almost no value. This reform helped to quickly stop the high prices. People had less money at first, but the money they had was stable and valuable. People in West Germany began working harder because they were paid in good money. They could now buy more goods, which helped the economy grow. When this new Western money arrived in West Berlin, people in East Berlin wanted to use it too. The Soviet Union saw this as a major threat to their control in East Germany. 5. Two Germanys start. West Germany started using new money, the Deutschmark. The Soviet Union did not like this. They were afraid the new money and Western influence would spread to their part of Berlin. Also, they wanted the Western countries to leave Berlin completely. So, in June 1948, the Soviet Union stopped all roads, trains, and water routes going into Berlin from the west. They blocked the city. People in West Berlin could not get food or coal or other important things by land or water. But the Western countries, the United States, Great Britain, and France, did not leave the city. They decided to help the people in West Berlin by air. They started bringing everything the city needed using airplanes. This was called the Berlin Airlift. Airplanes flew into Berlin every day and night. They carried food, medicine, coal, and other supplies. British planes landed in the Ghetto area, French planes in Tegel, and American planes landed very often at Tempelhof Airport, sometimes every 45 seconds. The airlift was very difficult, but it kept West Berlin alive. The Soviet Union's blockade lasted for almost a year, until May 1949. But it did not make the Western countries give up or leave Berlin. The blockade failed. The blockade was a big problem and made tensions worse. It showed the world that the danger from the Soviet Union was very real. It also showed that the Soviet Union might try to expand its power in Europe. Because of this, 12 countries from Europe and North America made a new group in April 1949. This group was called NATO. NATO was a military and political group. The countries in NATO promised to help each other if one of them was attacked. This was to protect Europe from possible Soviet expansion. By this time, it was clear that the 4 occupation zones in Germany would not become one country again soon. The agreements made earlier were not working. So the Western zones, controlled by the United States, Britain, and France, decided to form their own state. In May 1949, the Federal Republic of Germany was created. This country was in the western part of Germany, with Bonn as its capital. In response, the Soviet Union created its own state in its occupation zone. In October 1949, the German Democratic Republic was formed. This country was in the eastern part of Germany, with East Berlin as its capital. So now there were 2 Germanys. The Federal Republic of Germany followed a capitalist path. The German Democratic Republic followed a socialist path. Germany was officially divided into 2 different states. This separation started a unique experiment. Life in the 2 parts of Germany would become very different because of these 2 different systems and sides in the Cold War. 6. Life in 2 worlds. Life was very different in East Germany, also known as the German Democratic Republic, GBR. The government worked to build a socialist system. This meant big changes for everyone. Farmers had to join groups where they shared land and tools called cooperatives. Factories and businesses were owned and controlled by the state. The government made plans for how much they must produce. In schools, young people learned the ideas of socialism, based on thinkers like Karl Marx. The government wanted the economy to grow fast. The ruling party introduced new rules that asked workers to produce more goods without getting paid more money. They called these higher work quotas. Workers did not like this idea at all. Strikes started in the factories. These small strikes grew into large protests. Many people marched in the streets of Berlin and other cities across East Germany. In 1953, the government used force to stop the protests. They brought in powerful Soviet tanks to help the police and army. The government announced a state of emergency. The uprising was stopped by the tanks. But the feeling of unhappiness stayed with many people. Because of this, many started to leave the country. They moved to West Germany to find a different life. People called this problem the brain drain because many educated and skilled workers were leaving. The border between East and West Germany became difficult to cross. The government put up checkpoints and created special zones near the border. People needed permits to visit these areas. It became hard to see family or friends who lived on the other side. But there was still one easy way to leave: through Berlin. People could travel into East Berlin and then simply walk or take a train into West Berlin. From West Berlin, they could easily travel onward to West Germany. Every year, hundreds of thousands of East Germans left this way. This caused a big problem for the East German government. The leader, Walter Ulbricht, wanted to stop this flow of people. He asked the Soviet Union's leader to help build a barrier in Berlin. Ulbricht said West Berlin was dangerous because it was a place for spies and had military threats like NATO missiles. On August 12, 1961, the government of the GDR made a plan for tighter control around West Berlin. Early the next morning, Sunday, August 13, 1961, soldiers and police were sent to the border. Workers quickly began building a physical wall. They used concrete blocks and barbed wire. The work was fast. On some streets, the new border ran right through the middle. Houses on the east side that faced West Berlin had their doors and windows closed up with bricks to stop people from leaving. In just a few days, West Berlin was surrounded by barbed wire and fences. It was not possible to simply walk across anymore. People needed official permission and had to pass through heavily guarded checkpoints. Over the next years, this simple barrier grew into a strong, tall wall, about 160 kilometers long. It had watchtowers, alarms, and armed guards. The Berlin Wall divided the city in two, separated families, and stopped the main escape route to the west. This was the start of life in two very different German worlds. 7. Different money, different lives. Life was very different in the two Germanys. In the Federal Republic of Germany, the West, the economy grew fast. People had more money. The average person in the West earned about 3 times more than someone in the East in the late 1980s. West Germany received money from the Marshall Plan. It also joined the European Economic Community. This helped its companies trade with other countries easily. West Germany had many different kinds of factories and businesses. They competed with each other, and this helped them get better and make more goods. In the German Democratic Republic, the East, the government controlled everything. The economy was planned. Factories made heavy machines and other goods for communist countries. Wages were lower than in the West. But the government helped pay for some things. For example, kindergarten was much cheaper. Education, from school to university, was free. Many women in the East had jobs. Many people went to university. However, there were not many things to buy in East Germany.
Shops did not have a lot of different goods. Sometimes people waited a long time to buy a car or furniture. In the West, there were many more products, but they cost more. In the 1960s, 1/3 of families in the West had a car. It took until the 1970s for half of families in the East to have one. The government in the East also watched its people closely. The secret police, called the Stasi, had many helpers. They knew about the lives of many citizens. People felt like they were always being watched.
In West Germany, people did not feel this strong control from the government or secret services. West Berlin looked like a paradise to many people in the East. Life was easier there. People had more freedom and more things. Going from east to west was very dangerous after the wall was built. Many people died trying to cross it. No one is known to have died trying to go from west to east. 8. The wall falls, but in the 1980s, the Soviet Union became weaker. It could not support East Germany as much. People in East Germany were not happy with their lives. They wanted more freedom and a better economy. In the year 1989, many people started to protest in the streets. These protests became very large. On November 4th, 1989, 500,000 people were in a big square in Berlin. This was the biggest protest in East Germany's history. The government saw that many people wanted change. Just 5 days later, on November 9th, 1989, a government man spoke on TV. He said that people could travel outside East Germany. People watching thought this meant they could cross the Berlin Wall right away. The news spread fast. Many thousands of people went to the checkpoints at the wall. They wanted to go to West Berlin. The guards did not know what to do because there were so many people. Finally, the guards opened the gates. People from East Germany walked into West Berlin. People on both sides of the wall were very happy. They started to climb on the wall. People used hammers and tools to break pieces of the wall. This was a big event. The Berlin Wall fell. This meant the division between East and West Germany was ending. The 4 main countries from World War II said, "Okay." They agreed that Germany could be one country again. On October 3, 1990, East Germany became part of West Germany. Germany was one country again. Berlin became the capital city for all of Germany. But making the 2 parts of Germany one was hard, especially for the economy. West Germany had a strong economy with many different companies that competed. East Germany had a planned economy. Its factories were older and not as good as the ones in the West. When Germany became one, they used the same money. 1 East German mark was worth 1 West German mark. But before, the West German mark was worth more. This made things made in the East expensive for people with West German money. Many factories in the East had to close because they could not sell their products. Many people in the East lost their jobs. Companies from West Germany came to the East, but they were often bigger and took over the market. Famous German car companies like BMW and Volkswagen had their main factories in the West. Other big German companies like Adidas or Bosch also had their main offices in the West. Even now, many years later, there are still differences between the eastern and western parts of Germany. The economy in the East is not as strong as in the West. Young people sometimes move to the West to find better jobs or to study. It is like there is still an invisible wall. What do you think is the biggest challenge for true German unity today?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.